I mean, nobody needs a successor. Someone's gonna try hard and not gonna achieve what I achieved.
June 28th, Wimbledon Eve. Alcaraz posted a video. Soft forehands, bandaged wrist, perfectly timed. The world exhaled. His father's operation worked exactly as planned. Because that video wasn't a recovery update. It was damage control, scheduled, managed, released at peak emotional impact. One day before the tournament, Alcaraz built his entire legend to stop people asking the one question the camp refuses to answer. What is actually wrong with that wrist? Nadal answered it, accidentally. At a museum opening in May, cameras rolling, he used one word nobody on the Alcaraz team had ever said publicly. Nadal said broken, then grabbed it back immediately, added problem, kept moving. Nadal couldn't hide it. And that single slipped word really tells us everything about what his father has been hiding since April. Not just the true severity of the injury, but how tightly he controls every piece of information that leaves that camp. Agassi demanded transparency publicly. Silence. Ferrero got pushed out. Still silence. 9 words to the entire global media from the father. 9. Subscribe now. This goes deeper than a wrist injury. 9 words. That's the entirety of what Carlos Alcaraz's father said to the global press when asked to explain his role in one of the most dramatic coaching splits in modern tennis history. Everyone is free to express their opinion based on their knowledge. That was it. No elaboration, no context, no accountability. Just 9 words from the man that multiple tennis insiders say makes the real decisions inside the most scrutinized tennis camp on the planet right now. And while the world was busy celebrating that June 28th video, that soft, carefully framed Instagram moment of Alcaraz gently touching a ball with his bandaged right hand, almost nobody stopped to ask who decided to post it. Who decided the timing? Who decided that the eve of Wimbledon, the tournament Alcaraz won back-to-back in 2023 and 2024 and reached the final of in 2025, was the exact right moment to release a recovery signal to the public? Because it wasn't Carlos. Carlos was hitting forehands at low intensity in an indoor court in Murcia. Someone else was watching the calendar. That someone has been the invisible hand inside this story since the beginning. And to understand what he is actually hiding, you have to go back to April 14th. The day this whole situation started, Alcaraz was playing Otto Virtanen in the first round of the Barcelona Open. He won the match, 6-4, 6-2, routine. But during the contest, after a return, something gave way in his right wrist. He felt it, kept playing, won. And the next day stood at a press conference and said something that the tennis world underestimated completely. He said it was a more serious injury than any of us expected. Not a niggle, not fatigue, more serious than expected, coming from a 23-year-old who had just completed the career Grand Slam at the Australian Open in February, the youngest man in history to do so. Those words should have set off alarm bells immediately. They didn't, because within days, a diagnosis leaked through Spanish media. Tendinitis, inflammation of the tendon sheath, common in tennis players, manageable with rest and conservative treatment. The camp confirmed the word, confirmed no surgery was needed, confirmed ice and immobilization and anti-inflammatories were the plan. The story was painful, serious enough to pull out of tournaments, but ultimately straightforward. Give it time, he'll be back. Madrid went, Rome went, Roland Garros went, and that one stung because Alcaraz had won the French Open in 2024 and 2025, beating Sinner in a 5-hour, 29-minute final the previous year that is still the longest French Open final in the tournament's entire history. Then in May, Queens went, Wimbledon went. 6 consecutive tournaments, including 2 Grand Slams, wiped from the calendar of the best young player on earth. All of it attributed to tendinitis, except Rafael Nadal forgot the script for exactly 1 second. At the opening of his new museum in Mallorca in May, Nadal was speaking to journalist Javier de Diego from Radio Nacional de España. He was talking about Alcaraz's situation and said, and this matters enormously, luckily it's not a chronic injury, right? It's something I know well because I've broken what he has now twice. Then he appeared to catch himself, added the word problem, Immediately after broken, kept talking, moved on. The tennis media in Spain flagged it. Most of the international press let it pass. But sit with that sentence for a moment. I've broken what he has now twice. Nadal did not say inflamed, did not say irritated, did not say aggravated. He said broken. And the immediate walk back, stuffing problem in after the word like a man trying to close a door he'd accidentally opened, suggests it wasn't a casual slip of vocabulary. It was a specific medical term used by someone who knows exactly what Alcaraz has and who then realized he'd said more than he was supposed to. Here is why that matters medically. Tendinitis, the official diagnosis, is inflammation of the sheath surrounding a tendon. It is painful and it requires rest, but it is fundamentally a soft tissue issue. Recovery timelines exist. Treatment protocols are well established. A stress fracture of the wrist, however, which is what broken implies, is a categorically different injury. It heals on a different timeline, carries different risks on return, and demands a different level of structural caution. The fact that Alcaraz withdrew from Wimbledon over a month before the tournament even began, while officially dealing with inflammation, never quite made sense under the tendinosis framework alone. Teams don't pull their player from a major that far in advance for inflammation that is supposedly responding to conservative treatment. Andre Agassi said it plainly. On the Big T podcast, the 8-time Grand Slam champion, a man who had his own serious wrist injury requiring surgery during his career, went public with his frustration about the lack of transparency from the Alcaraz camp. He said it would be really helpful if he or someone close to him clearly explained the exact nature of his injury, because at this point we can only speculate. If it's a form of tendinitis, is it dorsal capsulitis? Is it carpal tunnel? What exactly are we talking about? Agassi wasn't being dramatic. He was asking the same question that every serious tennis observer had been asking for weeks. And the answer from the camp was the same as it always is: silence. That silence is not accidental. It is not oversight. It is a deliberate policy being operated by someone who has decided that controlling information is more valuable than providing clarity. And the man running that policy is Carlos Alcaraz Gonzalez, Carlos Sr., a former national-level tennis player who opened the Carlos Alcaraz Tennis Academy in El Palmar, Murcia, in the hometown where his son grew up, and who has been the dominant force in every major decision surrounding his son's career for years. To understand the full scope of that influence, you have to understand what happened in December 2025. Because what happened then is directly connected to everything happening now. The injury management, the information blackout, the video dropped on Wimbledon Eve, all of it. On December 16, 2025, Carlos Alcaraz announced the end of his coaching partnership with Juan Carlos Ferrero. 7 years together, 6 Grand Slam titles. Ferrero had taken a 15-year-old from El Palmar and helped him become the youngest world number 1 in the Open era, the youngest career Grand Slam winner in history, and the most watched player in the sport. He was named ATP Coach of the Year in both 2022 and 2025. 6 days after that second award, the split was announced. Ferrero's parting line told the whole story: "I would have liked to continue." What followed was a wave of reporting from inside Spanish tennis that painted a picture most international outlets refused to fully engage with. Clay magazine, Radio Nacional de España, and multiple sources close to the team all confirmed the same core fact. The split was driven primarily by ongoing disagreements between Ferrero and Carlos Sr. over how to manage the player's career. Not performance disagreements, not tactical disagreements. Career management disagreements. Where to train, how much family involvement the operation should carry, who held the real authority inside the structure. The training location issue had been building for years. Ferrero's Equalite Academy is in Villena, roughly 60 miles from El Palmar. Carlos Sr. had been developing the Carlos Alcaraz Tennis Academy in El Palmar, essentially in the family's backyard. In recent months before the split, Alcaraz had become increasingly reluctant to make the journey to Villena, gravitating instead toward home. Ferrero addressed this publicly, saying he never saw the two academies as rivals, and that he understood Carlos wanting to spend more time at home. But Clay magazine reported a heated argument between Ferrero and Carlos Sr. as far back as February 2023, when Ferrero chose not to travel on the South American tour and delegated to a former coach instead. That argument, sources said, left a mark that never fully healed. When contract renewal time came in December 2025, the process lasted approximately 48 hours. Ferrero received the proposal on Saturday, December 13th. The deadline to accept or reject was Monday. He didn't accept. The partnership ended without a face-to-face conversation between coach and player. Ferrero later confirmed he did not speak directly to Alcaraz to finalize the split, only asking him beforehand whether he was aware of what was on the table. Alcaraz said yes. From that point, Ferrero said, "I spoke with the people I needed to speak with." Kiko Navarro, who coached Alcaraz before Ferrero arrived and knows the inner workings of that family better than almost anyone, was direct. He said the decision came more from the environment than from the player, and that Alcaraz himself is very protective of his coaches. That is a precise and meaningful distinction. It means the 22-year-old who had just won the Australian Open and become the youngest career Grand Slam champion in history did not drive the removal of the coach who built him. Someone else did. Yevgeny Kafelnikov, the former world number one, did not mince words when asked about this on record. He said the biggest mistake in sport is when parents interfere in the process, and went further, "Carlos is a grown man. He's the one who can make all the decisions now. I don't know why he didn't just say to his father, 'Look, it's my business.' That part disappoints me a little." That is a former world number one publicly stating that a father's interference in a Grand Slam champion's career is a problem. Not a theory, not a rumor, a named, credible, experienced voice saying it out loud. And Carlos Sr.'s response to all of this? 9 words. Everyone is free to express their opinion based on their knowledge. The Ferrero situation then took another turn in June 2026 that nobody saw coming. Just weeks after the split, Ferrero had said publicly he needed months to process the pain of the separation and wasn't ready to consider coaching another player. By June 3rd, that had changed. In an interview published in Corriere della Sera, Ferrero was asked about the possibility of coaching Jannik Sinner, Alcaraz's biggest rival, the man he has beaten 10 times across their head-to-head, the player whose entire game Ferrero said he spent years building Alcaraz's strategy around. Ferrero said, "A few months ago I would have said no. The break with Carlos was still fresh and I wouldn't have been ready. But now that I feel stronger, I say, why not? Jannik loves to work hard and is willing to do anything to stay number one. It would be wonderful to coach him." Wonderful. That word lands differently when you know the full story. This is a man who described the split as a deep wound, who said he gave everything and poured his soul into the project, who was handed a 48-hour ultimatum and no face-to-face conversation, and now 6 months later he is publicly available to coach the rival. That is not a man who made peace with a mutual decision. That is a man who was removed from something he built and who has quietly started to move on by pointing himself toward the opposite camp. The fans noticed. On Reddit, the reaction was immediate and unfiltered. One comment read, "This guy has completely lost it since Carlos parted ways with him." Another said, "He earned so much goodwill from that partnership. This is not doing him any favors." The response to Ferrero's admission was almost entirely focused on what it revealed about the state of the relationship, not what it said about Sinner, because everyone understood that a coach who truly left on good terms doesn't publicly offer himself to the rival 6 months later. Meanwhile, back in Murcia, Alcaraz was hitting soft forehands indoors. His brother Alvaro, now listed as assistant coach as of 2026, was there. His fitness trainer Alberto Lledo was there. His physiotherapist Juanjo Moreno was there. His father was there. The family infrastructure, which Carlos Sr. has spent years assembling around his son, was operating exactly as it was designed to. Tight, controlled, self-contained. And therein lies the thing the June 28th video really tells us. Not about the wrist, but about the operations surrounding it. In a normal, professionally managed sports environment, when a 7-time Grand Slam champion suffers a significant injury and misses 6 consecutive tournaments, including 2 majors, The standard practice involves regular, medically specific communications, recovery timelines, scan results, specialist opinions, the kind of information that manages public expectation and demonstrates accountability to sponsors, to the ATP, and to the global fanbase. Alcaraz has provided none of that. His team has provided none of that. What they have provided is a series of carefully curated social media moments, an Instagram collage on June 17th, a running video from fitness coach Yedo, and then the June 28th hitting video. Each released at a moment calculated for maximum emotional impact and minimum medical specificity. That is not transparency, that is narrative management. And narrative management at this level, this consistently, this deliberately, requires someone running it with both the authority and the motivation to do so. Carlos Sr. has both. He runs the academy that bears his son's name. He controls access to the inner circle. He ended the relationship with the most successful coach in his son's career without a face-to-face conversation. He responds to global media scrutiny with 9 words. This is not a passive father who attends matches and carries racket bags. This is a man who has positioned himself as the ultimate authority inside a global sporting enterprise, and who has decided that the less the outside world knows, the more control he maintains. The injury is real. Nobody is disputing that. The wrist gave way on April 14th, and the consequences have been enormous. Alcaraz has lost over 3,300 ranking points, Sinner has built a commanding lead at world number 1, and Alexander Zverev capitalized on the open draw at Roland Garros to finally win his first Grand Slam title. The sporting cost has been severe and entirely genuine, but the management of information around that injury, what it is, how serious it is structurally, what Nadal actually said when he stopped performing for 1 second at a museum opening, that is where the real story lives. Because when the most respected player in Spanish tennis history accidentally uses the word broken and then immediately tries to retract it, and when an 8-time Grand Slam champion goes on a podcast demanding transparency and receives no response, and when a 48-hour ultimatum removes the most successful coach in a player's career without the player himself apparently driving the decision, you are not looking at a normal sports management situation. You are looking at a family that has decided it knows best. A father who built something from the ground up, who put the first racket in his son's hand at age 4, who built an academy in his hometown, who traveled the world watching that son become the youngest career Grand Slam winner in history, and who has concluded, perhaps not unreasonably from his own perspective, that nobody outside the family circle can be fully trusted with the thing they built together. The problem with that conclusion is that it leaves the most important questions unanswered. What did Nadal actually mean? What does that wrist actually have? What were the clauses in Ferrero's contract that a 48-hour ultimatum deemed unacceptable? And what precisely does the father see in his son's future that he believes requires this level of information control to protect? The June 28th video answered none of that. It was never designed to. It was designed to make you feel something. Relief, warmth, optimism, so you'd stop asking. And for most people who watched it, that worked perfectly. But now you know what it really tells you. The video is the message. The father is the story. And the wrist is just the thing they're using to control the timing of both. If this video gave you a perspective you haven't seen anywhere else, subscribe right now. Because this channel keeps pulling on threads that the mainstream tennis media leaves alone. Hit the subscribe button, turn on notifications, and stay locked in. The US Open is coming. Alcaraz is coming back. And when he does, the real questions about who is running his career and what they've been protecting while he was gone are only going to get louder.